Is the One Ring actually bad in this metagame? Hello folks, Phil Gallagher, aka ThrabenU here for another Legacy video, and today I have been asked to drop the One Ring from Red Stompy, which seems like crazy talk to me, but supposedly there's some theory behind it. So the deck list comes to us from Anubis, and the origin of the idea is from a user in the Mono Red Discord. And their hypothesis was that if you end up cutting the One Ring in a lot of matchups, which they do, and if you end up cutting it in a lot of the popular matchups, then maybe it should not even be in the deck. And instead, you can dedicate some game 1 slots to dealing with some things like Barrogoyf that might be problematic, and you can fit a few more early aggressive creatures into the deck list. Full disclosure here, I am not on board with this idea. I think the One Ring hard carries a ton of matchups, and it gives you a very, very hard to stop second and third and fourth wave versus slower controlling decks. Now, admittedly, those aren't the biggest portion of the metagame, but there's a huge number of the various blue-black matchups that end up turning into kind of a long, grindy mid-range game with things like Tamiyo and Barrogoyf putting in a lot of value. And in those sorts of situations, where your opponent is accruing card advantage over time, you don't want to run out of gas, you want to be able to keep up with them. But I am very much alright, I'm going to shut up and test it and make my own conclusions based on what I see. So we're going to give it a go here. We are on the full 8 Magus effects in the main deck, freeing up some sideboard space, and we have a couple of extra aggressive threats here in the form of Tersa Lightshatter. Tersa has been a medium power level card in my estimation. It is similar to a Fable of the Mirrorbreaker, kind of, but is much less value oriented. But the looting effect comes with haste, so that's pretty cool. The sideboard has some degree of spice. Voidmere is something that you can play versus the various Mystic Forge decks. I don't actually like this all that much as tech for that matchup, because they often have things like Yavimaya or filter lands that they can just use to dodge this. So I get what the card is trying to do, and it has other splash damage elsewhere versus, say, fast artifact mana decks. I don't expect to be impressed by this card, and I don't expect to board it in much. I don't like the idea of boarding this in versus Force of Will and Daze, for example. And then this is playing one anti-painter card. This can be an Eldrazi. They all accomplish the same overall goal. But if you get it into play, you could, throw it with Broadside for 13. So that's kind of cool. I have been asked to play this deck list as is with no changes, so we're going to hop directly into the league at this point. And folks, if you need some cards, you should consider ordering from TOAmagic.com. You get a fun little sticker when you do. You also get free shipping. They have a ton of awesome cards in stock, north of 100,000 cards, I believe. And if you like the really cool high-end stuff, they have individually scanned cards if you want to really bling out one of your decks with some cool stuff. Looking for promos? They've probably got them. So, with that being said, let's battle. So, my starting hand here has 2 mana. Don't think I'm going to keep that on a 7. Chrome Mox, imprint something, play Sundering Eruption, use Spirit Guide to play Fable, get rid of Fury. This will be fine. So now I decide if I want to make the hard call to play Magus on turn 1 where it is most powerful, or if I just want to play Fable. I think I'm going to hard call on Magus. I don't have the One Ring shoring up my endgame, so I don't have as many just things to rip off in the mid game that are going to be insane. So I think I am trying to steal more games on turn 1. Lotus Petal instead. More other Lotus Petal. Dark Ritual. Dark Ritual. And we're dead on turn 1. Fantastic play patterns. And I was asked to play this deck as is, which means that I do not have Leyline of the Voids which means this entire matchup is moot. Let's take a quick look here, see if there's anything interesting going on. Not really. We do have a couple copies of Poxwalker. Everything else here is kind of stock. So I'll concede. Don't you love how my turn 1 Magus of the Moon was impactful? For those of you who got in the comments of the YouTube videos a few days back and you said turn 1 Magus of the Moon and turn 1 Chalice of the Void are the same as turn 1 Oops All Spells. Obviously not. Obviously not. I think I'm going to play a bunch of mediocre looking cards in hopes of stealing a game. Voidmere alongside a Blood Moon effect can maybe do something. I go Dead Gone's out. I'm going to go Fury's out. And if my opponent jukes into creatures, I'll try to broadside them and Pyroglyph them out. From here, Tersa is probably expendable. And then I choose whether or not I don't want to play something mediocre like Unlicensed Hearse. The removing 2 cards at a time effect is not fantastic in a lot of cases. I'm going to go down. I could go down 2 broadsides, but I think I need all of the broadsides to respect the creature juke. This is mediocre. I can Chalice on 0 to stop artifact mana, and then play something that tries to loot into another piece of hate. I'm going to keep that. I, again, though, suspect that I am just fully going to lose this matchup. From Mox, I'm just going to imprint my most expensive card here. Throw down Fable. And stop artifact mana. Now, this doesn't stop Dark Ritual, obviously. So, it is very possible to still get turn 1 here. Alright, opponent's going to 17. Dark Ritual. Charbelcher in play. Opponent passes turn. We'll see if I find something that addresses Charbelcher. That sure doesn't. I'm going to go ahead and loot through. I'm going to keep the thing with haste that can attack for damage. Actually, I might be Sundering Eruptioning this turn. Yeah. Magus of the Moon. The color doesn't matter. Send in for 2. Opponent's at 15. I think I just need to destroy the land. I don't think I need to save my life points. I'll keep the treasure in case it lets me get to 6 mana next turn with this other treasure to play 2 spells. Not dead to Lion's Eye Diamond. But dead to land Dark Ritual. It's land, but not Dark Ritual. Shatter Skull Smashing. Not super relevant right now. Send in for 2. 13. I'm going to cape that. Again, I don't think my life total matters that much. I think I am either dead or not dead, with basically no in-between. This does shut off Dark Ritual, but now my opponent's lands don't cost them 3 life. So there are downsides here. I'm going to go ahead and attack in for 6. Opponent's at 7. I do not have lethal next turn. I'm dead to land. Got lucky. If this is a graveyard combo piece instead of a Belcher there, we lose that one on turn 1. The game where I'm on the draw is basically a disaster. Very Macabre is the only card that I have that's relevant, and my opponent can win through it a lot of the time. I don't even think this would be good enough on the play. Opponent mulligans. I can keep something that shuts off a Goblin Charbelcher on turn 1 or Blood Moons on turn 1 and does the other the following turn. Or I can mulligan to Fairy, which is my 1 piece of interaction for the graveyard-oriented combo. If I was mulliganing to Leyline, I think I keep going here. This might be good enough to keep as is, and I just hope I don't die. If I don't die, I have 3 different relevant cards. Alright, opponent is on 5. Alright, that is a tapped land. There is hope for me. So now I decide how I want to play this. I might want to use my Ancient Tomb for mana multiple different times. So I might just start on Sundering Eruption here, as that guaranteed denies a mana. There's a new Agademe, and passing. I think I will shut off my opponent's colored mana with the thing that has legs, and then probably start thinking about Disruptor Flute on Goblin Charbelcher. Ooh, got lucky. And in for 2. One is at 18. I'll pass the turn. I don't think I need to Disruptor Flute immediately. So, yeah. I think I'm still going to go Goblin Charbelcher. I have a bunch of like relatively bad graveyard-oriented cards that I am likely to draw. So I can maybe find something that disrupts the graveyard-oriented combo. The graveyard-oriented combo might also need to kick off with, you know, like a Dark Ritual, which my Magus of the Moon is currently covering. These lands enter untapped at this stage. Fable's okay. Fable lets me loot through this land. Maybe find something that addresses the graveyard, and I'm going to get rid of this upkeep stuff that I don't really need. Opponent continues to do nothing, which is very, very lucky for me. I'm going to loot through both of those. Thank you, deck. Note that I'm still just like very, very dead easily. So land drop, Lotus Petal, graveyard thing kills me. We are dodging that. Narcomoeba gets discarded. My deck has spit up hot garbage, but my opponent has bricked for 7 turns in a row. So we're going to consider ourselves lucky, and we'll see if we win or lose. I feel like I absolutely dodged a fucking bullet there. GG's. Today's video is sponsored by Moxfield.com. If you want to see upcoming sets, if you want to understand commander brackets, or if you just want an awesome place to store all, and I mean all, of your deck lists, Moxfield is the place. You can organize all of your decks by folders, and you can even change the views. You like visual, they've got that. You like text, they've got that. Check out my Moxfield Pro Field if you want to see all, and I mean all, of the decks that I've been cooking up. I have a reasonable opening hand here, and I have to decide kind of how I'm playing this one out. I don't really want to use this Spirit Guide right away. I get to use red mana once, so I probably want to stick one of these two. I think I'm going to do the generic lead on Chalice on 1 opener. See if my opponent responds with a Daze or something. If they do Daze, I consider using Simian Spirit Guide. They don't Daze and just stare at me, I can consider Chalice on 0 as a follow-up. I think I'm going to do Chalice on 0 as a follow-up in case my opponent is a combo deck. And if I draw my own artifact mana, I can maybe broadside fling my way out of this situation that I put myself in. Opponent fetches. Oh, it is blue-black. I was wondering if we might be getting spicy with depths or something. I mean, I guess it could be Grixis. Grixis might not have Verdant, though. I might have just seen 2 black oh, no, multicolor. It is Storm. How hateful is your sideboard bullshit? Pretty hateful. That's an oldie. So you may sacrifice 2 mountains rather than pay the spell's cost, destroy all artifacts. Which makes playing out Blood Moon a little awkward, right? Because that guarantees that my opponent has 2 mountains. That is incredibly awkward. Do I play the broadside? I think I am still going to play the Magus and try to stabilize my mana. Boy, that's really weird, though. But my opponent would be floating red. They wouldn't have access to initial black mana. And this is a sorcery. I'm talking about the One Ring now. In the mid game, the One Ring is really good in this matchup because it produces a turn where your opponent can't tendrils you, and a lot of times you have enough power on board that bogging once is just enough to get you to the next turn. All right, so there is the Pulverize, and hopefully I bottleneck my opponent on mana, on colored mana specifically. What is that? Is that Song? Okay, yeah, that's Song of Creation. LED goes to the bin, which I imagine is a card that my opponent desperately wanted. Okay, so now I imagine the last 2 cards are LED plus draw 7, Echo of Eons. Oh shit, passing the turn. All right, there's broadside. Send it. I really thought Echo was going to happen on that turn, but it didn't. Rainstorm? Like what was the gamble stuff doing if not trying to set up LED Echo? I don't know. I will go ahead and play a Fable. Go to Punchies. I'm going to send in. Opponent's at 10. I don't think I need to throw here. This is worth 2 damage now or 2 damage next turn. I feel like I am just getting away with murder this league. I'll discard both of those. Okay. This is lethal a number of different ways. Opponent goes to 4. I'll cast a Fury and then throw that at my opponent's face for lethal. That pulverized spot was super weird. I can just play Broadside and attack in, and maybe it takes my opponent a couple of turns to find appropriate, like another red land specifically to pulverize. But I think if I do that, I'm going to end up in that same position where I am like wanting to play the Magus the following, like not that turn, but the following turn anyway. Void Mirror does stuff. Disruptor Flute does stuff. And then there's like middling Graveyard Hate and Fiery Confluence that can go to the face or maybe disrupt some artifact mana that is played out. The game where I am on the draw is really rough. I think I get turn 1 to decent portion of the time. I don't want these. I don't think I need Fury. So Hearst turns into a threat. Fairy Macabre is a surprise. I think I'm doing at least 2 fairies to round out the deck. Currently have 20 creatures in. Tersa's Haste can come as a surprise. Pyrogoyf is kind of slow here. I think I'm going to go down 2 Pyrogoyf and keep some and do some fairies. Again, the fairies aren't overly exciting. They can maybe break up some Gaia's Will lines. If my opponent sequences poorly, they could, in theory, disrupt an Echo line, but that shouldn't really happen. My hand doesn't do anything on turn 0 or 1, so I am not in for this. This hand is fine. I probably keep this pitching Broadside. I am okay if I get a turn 1. I am okay versus Thoughtseize. But if my opponent just turn 1s me, there's not much that I can do here. And it sure does look like I'm dying on turn 1. That's choosing not to use a Dark Ritual. There's a gamble. Guarding Chromox. Okay. Yeah, this is what I expected to happen last game, and I would just die. I am going to exile a Spirit Guide on the off chance that that becomes relevant. With another Spirit Guide, it might have been. Ooh, Thoughtseize means that I don't get a little fairy surprise in case that becomes relevant. My hand is also very bad. I don't have any soul lands here, so even if I make it to my turn, I don't have any interaction. Unless I Lucksack into some fast mana. I've lost Disruptor Flute. Oh, opponent fizzled. Hell yeah. Again, we can't really celebrate, though, because my hand is also, quite frankly, very bad. I'm going to go tapped land and pass. And I will be hoping to pull a soul land off the top pedal. All right, are we comboing off, or are we just playing out artifact mana before Chalice or something can come down? Okay. The opponent's got mana for days. I don't. Double Fairy Macabre, maybe not what I am looking for. And I am at the mercy of my opponent's top deck, as well as my own top deck. I'm fine with them drawing petals. Alright, cool. With my opponent having 4 initial mana sources that aren't land-based, I think I just do Tersa and try to loot here. That doesn't attack. This is telegraphed. I've already played a land. I am attacking for 3. Feels horrible. I don't believe that I am getting away with murder against these combo decks. Like, is very lucky. Broadside is just lethal next turn. Attack for 5, attack for 10, fling for 5, exactly 15. Down to 10. Tapped land and pass. Alright. That's honestly fair. It's turn 5. Oh, do you not actually have it? Are you just casting some mana for funsies? That'd be cool. Opponent made a red with Lotus Petal. There's Burning Wish. Not cracking LED. There's Beseech, which is fine. Still not cracking LED. There's Song of Creation. 2 cards remaining in hand. So every spell is going to turn into more spells. I'm just going to always yield to that. And we'll see if we die. It is non-deterministic as of right now, but this is a hell of a source of card advantage. Opal turns into Opal and more cards. Brainstorm. Fetch land can clear the Brainstorm to draw fresh cards. Opponent wants the same cards, which is presumably very bad for me. We are also at the point where the Storm Count is just lethal, and mana does not look to be a bottleneck either. LED, Dark Ritual. At this point, I'm just going to call out relevant plays because my opponent is probably going to play out a bunch of mana. All right, opponent is thought seizing me, so this is my point where I use the fairy to do something. Mana is never a bottleneck. I'm going to take a Beseech out of the graveyard and a Brainstorm out of the graveyard. Opponent's at 8. All right, there's Burning Wish. And there's the Tendrils. I will concede. It had to be that turn for my opponent. We honestly got lucky that they bricked off for as long as they did. I start to be very creature light if I start taking out Pyroglyphs or something like Fiery Confluence, so I think I'm just going to call this good. This plays a broadside on turn 1, but it's otherwise pretty unimpressive. I'm going to go ahead and mulligan this one. This is going to do some stuff. Land, Chrome Mox, Imprint, Pyroglyph, Chalice on 0, Voidmere. This is fine. I think I'm going to get a threat, keep a threat, and assume that I draw mana. I am not really convinced that Voidmere is better than something like Null Rod here. So Chalice needs to come down before Voidmere. Then Voidmere happens. I will say, though, Voidmere kind of works versus Beseech. I say kind of because when the opponent casts the spell off of Beseech, that spell will be countered. However, let's assume that that spell is a lethal Tendrils of Agony for at least one more storm than what they need to kill me. The Voidmere counters the original copy, and then the storm copies just get me. So it kind of works versus Beseech. My opponent doesn't get to pulverize Voidmere, so that's cool. There's presumably some other abrade or bounce type nonsense that can answer cards that look like this, though. Loot is fine. Opponent will fetch and surveil. I wonder if I just like outright name like Burning Wish so my opponent does not get access to something that kills these. I could see that. Looks like opponent is just passing the turn. I would like to draw some mana here. I did not. Oh, I will just be passing my turn here. I had to step away for just a second. The opponent is at the point where they are hard discarding, and that may be helpful later on. This is fine. We'll go yes to that. I'm going to throw down Magus of the Moon first. This means that my opponent can't cantrip towards stuff, and will have a hard time using colored mana in pretty much any capacity. I've shut off Burning Wish, I've shut off artifacts, I've shut off more other artifacts. Another Disruptor Flute. I don't even know what to name. I'll cast it at end of turn. I think since I don't know what I would name, it was correct to just play Broadside and attack. There's probably some niche card that I should be naming here. I'm going to throw down with Broadside, and in for 4. On a Broadside, I'm going to throw this one on Echo of Eons. Bring my opponent to 9, because 4 plus 5 is 9. Alright, seems like we got it. Opponent is discarding again. We will play Tersa, that's fine. Trigger. I'll loot through City. I'll go to Punchies, and my opponent concedes. Well, we're 2-0. But I feel like I've gotten a little lucky both rounds. I'm not gonna lie. We got a weird opener. I can open on Chalice on 1, but if I do so, I don't have a turn 2 play. I think I'm just gonna ship this one. I think most Ancient Tomb style hands are just better than this. We are going to 5. This has literal 0 mana. And this is a pretty bad YOLO hand, where I'm now YOLOing Magus of the Moon instead of YOLOing Chalice. On 5, we're just doing this, though. We'll probably Chrome Mox, imprint a land, city, play Magus. I will have 2 mana left over. Fury always goes back in the deck. And if there's not any cards in graveyard, I think I'm just going to keep the 3rd mana source. Chrome Mox, imprint, land, and YOLO. It's in play. Lotus Petal, Dark Ritual, untapped land for no life. God damn it. No. God damn fucking oops all spells. Ball Ritual. 4 mana. Not really in my nature to give double middle fingers and taunt the camera, so I won't. However, it's what I'm thinking about. Yeah, Cabal Therapy. Anything cool in the build? Singleton, Reanimate, which is pretty stock at this point. And I'm dead. Good shit. Not really, though. Alright. So we did this song and dance already. I think I went Yah, and Junked Tersa? Or is it Pyrogoyf? Tersa loots into selection. Maybe it's Pyrogoyf. Maybe it's 2 and 2. Pyrogoyfs get a lot worse if I am trying to pick away at a graveyard slowly with unlicensed hearse. The Pyrogoyfs help if my opponent has random creatures, though. Tersa out. Wish they were fucking ley lines. The moons are not impressive unless they come alongside something like Chalice of the Void that also shuts off the Lotus Petal mana. But I might just need every single bit of interaction that I can get. Chalice on 0, Chalice on 1. Die when my opponent gets to 4 lands. Have something that helps with that a little bit. This is an incredibly awkward hand that I'm going to hope smooths out. Chalice on 0. Chalice on 1. Now I'm going to talk about a philosophy thing here, because every time I do this, people come at me with my own words in the comments. Something that I often say in a vacuum is that a hand with lock pieces and no follow-up threats is not a keep. However, in the case of Oops All spells, you just need to pile on the interaction, and I don't think I get to throw back something that interacts twice on turn 1. So I am going to go ahead and just blow up the land here, and then we can play Fable next turn. I've interacted with my opponents 3 times by my turn 2. Hopefully that ends up being good enough. My clock is not fast enough right now to just beat 4 running land drops into way to go off. Opponent scoops it up. Now we have to win a game on the draw. We unfortunately didn't see very many cards from my opponent this game, so I don't know if they are on Belchers or Dudes, and that changes what I might do with some flex slots. I think I'm still gonna keep maxed out on the moons. My opponent is on 6 cards. Voidmere is interesting. I might want a fairy in the opener. This is not a fairy. Fairy is not a guaranteed win. I think I am going to fish, though. I am so afraid of dying on turn 1. I can go to 4. I will. Okay. I think we're going to keep double fairy, disruptor flute, and hope for the best. I have 2 pieces of turn 0 interaction. 17. Dark Ritual. Spirit Guide. Spy. Opponent has 3 Narcomoebas. I feel like I can use the first one of these to target Memory's Journey and, like, Oracle. Memory's Journey is 3 cards. What Spirit Guide did my opponent use? My opponent used a... Okay, so my opponent has a green Spirit Guide in hand. I target Dread Return and Thassa's Oracle. No, I don't need to target Dread Return. I'm just trying to think about how I beat my opponent not fighting over the Thassa's Oracle stuff and just going for creatures via Poxwalkers. Because when they cast Memory's Journey, the Poxwalkers can come back. And if my opponent just ignores all the Thassa's Oracle win stuff and goes for just target 3 random cards, put Poxwalkers into play, do bridge from below stuff, it's kind of messed up. What if I leave the Dread Return and try to get them to do the Thassa's Oracle stuff? Oh, hold on. There's no bridge from below? Yeah, there's no bridge from below. What if I go Narcomoeba, then when my opponent flashes back something, I go Poxwalkers? No, because then they just Memory's Journey in response to that, and they still get the 3rd body in play. It's insane that Double Fairy is, like, not actually all that good here. If I go Poxwalkers now. Yeah, Poxwalkers now, and try to force action on Memory's Journey. Those have now resolved. Now, if I fairy Narcomoeba, I think I'm good. Alright, Narcomoeba. So that's only 2 bodies. Dread Return doesn't work. And this isn't a fast enough clock to get me. And my Disruptor Flute is going to stop a casting. Oh, no, it's not. I was about to say a casting of Thassa's Oracle because I just put this in play. All right, so now I need something that interacts with Lotus Petal or Thassa's Oracle over the next couple of turns. All right, Petal, Petal, Oracle on top of deck. Yeah. All right. Come on, Chalice. That's not Chalice. I get one more draw step here. Get in for 2. 15. Can draw Void Mirror. Oh, the blue mana off Jack-O-Lantern in the graveyard gets them the win right now. Well, that was cool. Loss through double Fairy Macabre. Game. Alright. The opening hand is very mediocre here. I only have 1 payoff card in the entire thing. This is also not great. I don't know how hyper aggressively I can mulligan with this deck, though, because I don't get the One Ring to bail me out in the mid game. I think I'm going to keep 6 of these and hope that Tersa loots me into something reasonable. Urborg. Now my hand does nothing. Oh, I am getting to keep Chromox. It's a shame. Would like to do this. Sometimes I just eat Vampire Hexmage Dark Depths immediately this turn. Oh, Factory. We doing like Pox stuff? Well, those don't make black mana through Blood Moon. The layers thing called dependencies if you want to understand the interaction between these things. Opponent might be doing some Pox shit in this oops infested world. Which, like, good on you, opponent, for fighting the good fight. But also, it's a tough sell. I'm going to get rid of this. Sundering Eruption is weird. If my opponent finds a basic swamp, this destroys it. But until that point, this card does nothing. I think I'm just going to try to find things that end the game. Send in for 3. Opponent's at 15. There's the basic swamp right on time. Arn. Sure. Are we going to get into an Ensnaring Bridge game? We are going to get into an Ensnaring Bridge game. So this kills Karn. I think I'm going to make the land drop. I have Pyrogoyf to be thinking about. Make this 2/2. Send in at Karn. Opponent still has 5 cards in hand, and there's a very good chance that they can dump a couple cards out of hand this turn, but probably not everything. So if I can still attack... Ooh. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, plus another 7 from a Fury Fling. I think I say no. I very much value the short-term damage right now. Make a treasure. Opponent's at 8. Pitchcast Fury. 4 damage to nothing. Broadside. Throw Fury. Opponent is at 1. So if a single one of these creatures ever gets to attack, my opponent dies. And we dispatch them in short order. This is probably a matchup where, despite the fact that my opponent is a Karn deck, the One Ring getting me out of early Thoughtseizes, Hymns, 1-for-1 removal spells, and whatnot would just be really good. Even if my opponent is playing colorless cards, they're also playing swamps, so I don't think Voidmere makes a ton of sense. I think Disruptor Flute probably does. I'm going to board Chalice of the Void out for now until I get a better read on what my opponent is doing. And I think I'm going to bring in a couple of mount spells for Goyf or something that can just go to face versus Ensnaring Bridge. The Blood Moon effects are probably mid, but sometimes they are going to shut off those wastelands and other utility lands. I don't know that I'm boarding them out, but I do think they are going to be mid. I think I'm going to respect the Goyfs. But Dead Gone is absolutely going to go under a Chrome Mox a huge portion of the time here. I'm going to say this is fine. This hand can absolutely be improved by my draw step, though. Just basic swamp and pass the turn. I'm going to Chrome Mox. I'm going to imprint one of my expensive cards. I think I'm going to go with Fury. And I'm going to take 2 to play Magus of the Moon here. I could do this with City of Traders, and like some portion of the time I save some life doing so, but my opponent like very easily could have Dismember type cards that just take out Magus of the Moon, and then I might put myself in an awkward situation where I am down some resources. Orcish Bowmasters is a thing. I might not attack with Magus immediately. There's no cards in graveyard yet, which is a little awkward. I think I am just going to pass the turn here and Disruptor Flute on my opponent's turn. If a Dark Ritual goes on this stack, I will Disruptor Flute for Karn. Land drop 3. That's a Dark Ritual. Do I want my opponent to cast the Karn? If they have more than one 4-drop in hand, something like the One Ring, I might want to wait. Okay, yeah, I'm going to wait. That is Ensnaring Bridge. That resolves. All right, that is Orcish Bowmasters, which is fine. I was already trying to play around that. For my mana efficiency, I'm going to go ahead and play this out. And we're going to name Karn. I don't want my opponent tutoring up with Ensnaring Bridge in play. I can destroy their basic swamp to get them a basic swamp. Probably not what I want to be doing. This is a very unimpressive Pyroglyph, but that might actually be good right now. It can attack under Ensnaring Bridge as things currently stand. And longer term, I will just work towards copying Pyroglyph and doing disgusting things in that capacity. 2 cards remaining in hand. Orcish Bowmasters is a thing. Once again, if I attack, I think I'm going to play an actual factual Blood Moon. And then I think, comfortable sending in with Magus of the Moon. Alright, opponent's just gonna block 2, go to 16, and I'll pass there. Opponent may or may not have some black cards stuck in hand. Expedition Map. Sure. And now these don't get to attack. Am I comfortable playing this out as a creature? Yes, I don't have the One Ring, so this is fine. I don't think it's good, but it's fine. We'll probably search up a basic swamp. Yep. That's 3, down to 2. That's great. That is a win condition. Send on in. Hit opponent to 12. Play Fable. And pass. Opponent's up to a ton of mana. Alright, great. Yes, I'm going to keep this one. Loot through these 2. Those are not great cards. They don't really need to be. Opponent is at 6, facing down lethal from either the creatures on board or Pyroglyph copying. Smallpox. Absolutely. Do I sacrifice the Pyroglyph when I just have Fable coming? I don't think so, but it makes me not have lethal immediately, which is weird. Oh, my opponent is discarding their last card, though. Oh, but that means the Ensnaring Bridge stuff isn't happening. Okay. Worked it out. Discard City. Sacrifice a Spirit Guide. Sacrifice a land. So my opponent needs to remove either Fable or Pyroglyph, or they die next turn. Is this I don't control? It is, so I can't bounce my own creature to save it. That's a regular Edict. That is not going to cut it. I'll sack a Shaman, and my opponent is Hellbent. So, target Pyroglyph, triggers, face. Opponent, you're out there in the streets fighting the good fight, and I do salute you for that. GG's. I don't love this. So I'm on the play. I can play a turn 1 Magus of the Moon or Blood Moon and hope that it sticks. If it doesn't stick, I am in trouble. If it does stick, I have 2 mana towards a Blood Moon for another layer of protection. I'm going to keep this, and I'm keeping this specifically because we don't have the One Ring in our deck. I think if I have the One Ring in my deck to draw towards, I don't need to try to risk getting free ones. But without the One Ring in my deck, I think I am more willing to just YOLO and hope that it works. And now it is like, do I want to play Magus, which is removable via some removal spells, or Blood Moon, which opens up Force of Negation specifically? I think I'm going to go with the stickier Blood Moon here. It does resolve. So we'll see how much of an impact, if any, this has on the game. Again, sometimes my opponent can open up on a basic island or whatever, and then my gambit does not pay off. Ooh, it's show and tell. That's a thing. This is land drop 3. It is stock up instead. Obviously, that's very good. I've not drawn any follow-up mana, unfortunately. Alright, it's happening. I can put Tersa into play to loot here, I think is what I'm doing. I want to hit lands for Gone. Technically Double Fury answers this, but that's such a blowout, because the first Fury can just resolve and then my opponent can interact with the second one. I'm going to keep both the Furies in case I have to go that route. I don't want to. Broadside Fling Fury is much more palatable. Ooh, no Force of Will shown. Opponent has other very, very good cards, though. I would not hate drawing a land. Alright, I did draw a land. This is very strange now. I'm going to go Chromox, Imprint, Spirit Guide, go Broadside. Now I can't Double Fury. I don't have enough cards. Is days. Alright. Unfortunate. Now I send in with Tersa. Attempt to take this off the board before my opponent untaps. Not the best use of this card. This also might just be free damage that my opponent lets through. There, they are going to block. They gain their life. I think I am going to pitch Gone in hopes of hardcasting this Fury. Well, shit. It was never meant to be. Opponent did not have very many unknown cards, and they were just Force of Will and Daze. This is a very tough matchup, especially since I don't have any Power Blasts in the board to counter Show and Tell. And I'm now down very far on cards, and I don't have the One Ring to draw me back into the game here. I will do this. Pitch the Fury. 6 cards in graveyard. I'll hold that as a spell. There are, I guess, timelines where I could cast it as a spell to get a 7th card into play. Into graveyard to trigger Tersa's ability. Ah, shit. Well, we tried. That'll do. GG. Disruptor Flute for Show and Tell. Voidmere does some stuff versus Omniscience. And technically versus counterspells, but it's not very impressive. I'll play some Dead Gones. And I can decide if I want to get cheeky and try to play Darksteel Colossus to put in off of Show and Tell. I am not really sure that that is good enough. If this is an Emrakul, I think it is a different story. I don't know that I'm going to play that. I think I'm going to go Blood Moons out. Trim some Magus of the Moons. They're not super potent here. This Darksteel Colossus is just not very impressive versus like Archon, which could cause it to be sacrificed when it comes into play, and Atraxa, which even if my opponent has to block with it, we still have a new fistful of cards. It's possible this is better than Magus of the Moon, or like better than 1 Fury. I think I'm going to keep the Furies as burn spells with Broadside. This hand just does nothing. Too much mana. This hand is not impressive. Chalice of the Void is not strong in this matchup. Like, shutting off the cantrips sounds fun and all, but it does not stop the Show and Tells and the sneak attacks, which my opponent will win the game with. I will go to 5 rather than keep this. Yikes, the 5-card hand is unplayable. We are now going to 4. This is the best hand that I have seen so far, and it's not close. It is just unfortunate that this is our best hand here. This is a tough matchup, and I am down a bunch of cards here. Alright, the Chalice stuck. So I can go Chalice into Fable and maybe get lucky and draw Hotter Than the Sun. Battle. Ancient Tomb. Fuck. Fable. That is an Emrakul. That card is pretty good. Imagine if I had my own Emrakul. Just got to attack back there. None of this stuff wins me the game. Aha! We will cast Gone on Emrakul, who has protection from spells that are 1 or more colors, unfortunately. GG's. Opponent got us. And that means we end up with a 3-2 finish in this league. Alright, so let's wrap this one up here. Overall thoughts on the deck list. Mid. Fairy just probably needs to be Leyline of the Void. There's too much Oops All spells running around, and the difference between Fairy Macabre and Leyline of the Void is profound in that matchup. I 4-1 if this is Leyline of the Void. Very, very, very easily. I miss the One Ring actively. Not in the absolute fastest of matchups, but in the slower matchups where, the game isn't decided on turn one. I think the One Ring just being a card that singularly spirals the game out of control is much better than having access to 2 Tersa and 2 main deck Dead Gone. I think playing Darksteel Colossus was cute. Don't think that's the optimal pick there. I already talked about the difference between that and like an Emrakul in that show and tell matchup, for example. Voidmere did some work today. I am still not convinced that that is the best thing you can be playing in your sideboard slots, but it did some work. It was worth its weight in the sideboard in today's matches specifically, but I am still very skeptical on that one. Sample size is 1 league here, so that's something to keep in mind, but based on how often I was pining for the One Ring, and based on the fact that like the One Ring represents 6 fling damage with broadside at any given time as well, I think the combination of those two things make it so that like I would want to keep exploring the One Ring. I know we are in a Bowmaster infested world and everything, and like trying to get virtual card advantage by making Bowmaster worse against you is cool. But the One Ring's just a stupid Magic the Gathering card, and while it is legal in Legacy, I think I want to be jamming 4 of them in a whole bunch of decks. Oh, we got a sweet hair thing going on in the back there. That's fantastic. Alright, and with that, I think I'm going to call it a day here, folks. I hope you enjoyed. If you have any thoughts, throw them down in the comments below. See ya!